Doing a film review of the Vikings this time of year almost feels like a threat more than an exercise in in decency, Andrew Krammer. But review the film we must. 26-0 loss to Seattle. Everyone's like, let's see Max Brosmer. Let's see Max Brosmer. We saw Max Brosmer, and you were telling me this would have functioned as the worst offensive game in Jets history. How did we know this?
That's what our friend Aaron Schatz, and the creator of the DVOA metric that tries to balance all these things out and put at least one statistic on a lot of offensive, defensive, and whole team performances. But yes, I was a Vikings fan. It was on Blue Sky. Must have been some masochist who asked, Aaron, please tell me, is how would this Vikings game rank in Jets history? And Aaron came back and said, it would be the worst in Jets history as well, not just Vikings history. That's how bad that was.
And that's coming off of gaining 4 yards in the second half against Green Bay. So they got 52 yards in a 4-quarter span from last 2 quarters against Green Bay to the first 2 quarters against Seattle.
Yeah, and to clarify, I'm sure DVOA, and I know a little bit of the methodology behind it, but it weighs pretty heavily turnovers, which the Vikings had 5 of them, and obviously weighs pretty heavily plays that score points, and the Vikings had 0. So it doesn't happen too often that you have those two things so diametrically opposed.
It's hard to, as they might say, it's hard to win when you turn it over 5 times and don't score. Exactly. They were not getting into the right D&Ds in that game, were they? Listen, I was curious at least to see Max Brosmer. I think a fair number of people were. I think the Vikings were probably even kind of like, hey, what have we got here? How will he function in this offense? And Kevin O'Connell even said after the game, they kind of wanted to give him not just a limited or base menu, but kind of see him operate a fairly robust part of their offense. It obviously didn't work. What do we think of the approach and how it was executed?
Yeah, they went into this one wanting, as you mentioned, O'Connell saying that he had shown the ability in practices, and they were very confident in Max, very excited to see him out there in this opportunity. This goes back to training camp. I remember on Friday, O'Connell mentioning, like, look, this goes back to us evaluating his reps against, albeit the second and third team defenses in training camp for the most part. They do some starting defense against him as well, but they thought he could run this system. And it just goes to show you once again, much like with JJ McCarthy, how different these things can look in practices versus in games. And it's not to say that Max was, in over his head necessarily. He obviously was, because it didn't go well, but I'm trying to say that it wasn't like all his issues were mental, much like we saw what I thought was McCarthy's issues here, where he just seems to be short-circuiting in the head. O'Connell said he was just kind of sped up and processing things too quickly, things that were a little more typical of your first NFL start, which we certainly saw McCarthy do in Chicago back in September. Those issues are more, easy to kind of work through, because you can just tell them to take a minute, hitch, do those, take a breath in the backfield, all those things that allow you to kind of see the field and open it up. But his teammates were failing him too. So this approach just didn't work at all on many fronts. And it's easy to question after the fact when you see 0 points and you see how bad this was. But perhaps it would have been a better approach to have scaled things back even more in terms of not giving multiple plays at the line of scrimmage, in terms of running on 4th and 1, in terms of coming up with more creative ground games. Jordan Addison was not given a single handoff, nor was Jalen Naylor. They had 6 carries by halftime to 17 dropbacks. It was on Max Brosmer to play point guard in a system that asks its quarterback to consistently do that. Well, if your point guard keeps changing and you've got such an inexperienced one now, maybe it's time to change up the philosophies with which you're approaching these things. And Kevin O'Connell did not do that on Sunday.
No, and he hasn't necessarily seemed to do that with JJ McCarthy, although I did feel like the game plan was at least somewhat simplified and pared down against the Packers, his last game, before he was obviously ruled out with the concussion protocol for what we think, what O'Connell says is something that happened at the end of that Packers game, which is what leads to Brosmer starting this game. So you were starting to see maybe some of that, at least game plan simplification of more runs, more kind of like trying to get it into manageable downs, not put so much on McCarthy's plate. So it almost feels like it's just like baptism by fire. Like, you got to go through this in order to get better. But while you're going through it, it can be historically bad, especially if you're playing really good defenses like they were 2 weeks ago against Green Bay and then certainly against Seattle.
Yeah, and it would be something too. It would be one thing, I should say, if the other 10 guys were playing perfect around him, if you were getting what you thought you might be getting going into the season, but the bad quarterback play has continued to overshadow, I should say, the bad play by Will Fries, Jordan Addison dropping passes, Justin Jefferson dropped a throw that, albeit was behind him, but your superstar needs to make that catch, especially considering the circumstances. So you just have veteran guys that did not play well, especially out of the gate. Like Fries got beat by Leonard Williams on an early sack. And this was before the wheels started to come off for Max individually, where he sails a third down pass over Jordan Addison and all that stuff. So like they just need, whether it's McCarthy or Max Brosmer, they need the other 10 guys to play better around him. And even if they did play a perfect game, I don't think they're winning this one on Sunday, but they didn't get much of a chance. And Max didn't get much of a chance to get into a rhythm, because that one that Addison dropped was a well-thrown ball right over the middle, 13, 15 yards downfield. That's a catch and run opportunity that could be a kind of a spark, as Kevin O'Connell alluded to after the game, that a young quarterback needs in that moment, and he doesn't get it. And then there was a pass later on too, where Max just went too quickly through his reads. He checked into the proper play. This was an example of O'Connell asking him to operate within their system. He does everything he's supposed to do, checks into the throw against the blitz. And then by the time he gets to it, or he gets to it too quickly, and just sails this pass over Addison's head, like 15 yards downfield, before seeing how Jordan was going to sit that route. So there's just certain things that were off here and there consistently with this offense that it shouldn't be surprising considering how inexperienced the quarterback was. But again, even when those things worked with Max, you had a veteran teammate often letting him down.
Justin Jefferson, 2 catches for 4 yards, didn't speak with reporters afterwards. It's been a lot for him this year. I think I mentioned this to Royce on Monday, but I kind of crunched it, and it was like his numbers with Carson Wentz were pretty good, pretty much kind of on par with what we're used to seeing from Justin Jefferson. The 5 games with Wentz, he had like 470 some yards. The 7 games with the young quarterbacks, it's like 320-ish, something like that over 7 games. And it seems like it's getting worse and worse now, obviously, with 2 catches for 4 yards. Are they, is it that they're not finding him? Is it he's got like a 10% edge that's gone? I can't figure this out, or why someone can have 2 catches for 4 yards in a game like that.
Yeah, and you're watching it too, and that's part of the Kevin O'Connell critique, right? That I think is the fairest critique of still approaching things the same way, where many of Justin Jefferson's opportunities might be 10, 15, 20 yards downfield, where maybe bring him back closer to the line of scrimmage more often. Maybe ask him to break a tackle or two. Those kinds of things. And even when they did do that, there were examples. It's not like they don't. There was a 3rd and 3 where they tried to hurry, quick snap it up at the line of scrimmage. They put Jefferson in the backfield, and they quick snap it, probably because they don't want Seattle to identify that and jump on him right away. Well, Seattle's still a pretty good defense and jumped on the flat route with Jefferson there. And so I'm trying to remember what happened on that play, but Brosmer ends up moving off of it, and they obviously do not end up completing it. I think that was a sack or an incompletion or something like that. But they tried to work some quick things into Jefferson, but most often than not, it was an example of Jefferson running 15, 20 yards downfield, and he's getting bracketed by 2 different Seattle defensive backs. And Seattle was incredibly aggressive in this game. They're very, very good and sound defensively. And so they knew where they had to kind of attack and put the pressure points. And so they doubled Jefferson. They would often man coverage everybody else. There was one early 3rd down where there was 2 defensive holding penalties, and the broadcast actually showed the wrong one that it was called on, because there were so many options of how aggressive Seattle was being. But Seattle knew, like, if we just cover a guy, if we just put a guy near a guy, Max is not going to make that throw. He's not even going to try it because he doesn't want to make a mistake. And so Jefferson was getting the bulk of the Seattle attention, but even the other guys were getting kind of latched onto in ways that we're going to test a young quarterback's confidence to make contested throws. And that's what Seattle does as a defense. They're top 5 in like almost every category. So again, to ask Max to go in and do this against this opponent, again, it's easy to say after the fact, but it looked horrible because of what they were asking him to do.
The 4th and 1 play that essentially ended their season for all intents and purposes, right? Like they're potentially going to it could score a touchdown there. I mean, you're only 4 yards from the end zone. It's 4th and 1. But they're kind of hurried on the play. They don't break the huddle till 10 seconds left. They snap it at 2. I'm like, maybe call a timeout here. Even if you watch the play back, if they hand the ball to Ham, there's a linebacker right in the hole. If Brosmer isn't pressured, there's 2 guys waiting for Aaron Jones on that kind of. It's not going to work even without the pressure, I don't think. I mean, he might have found a third option or something. There might have been another option, Jefferson kind of clearing across the middle, something like that, maybe. But it just seemed like the wrong play at the wrong time with the wrong guy. And I think, sorry, just as we're recording right now, I see the Vikings have cut Adam Thielen. So there's that.
Wow.
So, yeah, I don't know. He was a healthy scratch in that game, right?
Yeah, and O'Connell said afterward, just we kind of hemmed and hawed through an answer, but there's obviously more to it there with Adam getting released. So he must not have been. I'm not going to speculate. Who knows? We'll find out more. Yeah.
Yes, we will. Sorry, just so the email notification popped up. I was like, oh, it's interesting. Yeah. But anyway, I just wondered if maybe they could have called a timeout there. Found a different play, found something. It was like 4th and 1.5 yards. That was an awful lot to ask of a quarterback whose strength is not really mobility.
No, you're well, and O'Connell did mention that being kind of a run pass option there, and I'm not sure if he meant at the line where Max had the option to check into a run play, or if he meant afterward with Max just bootleg keeping it and trying to run in there. But the part that I didn't like is that you're flaring Aaron Jones out, and you're right. The only run option there is a handoff based on that specific design to Ham as the fullback. And like you said, Ham without a lead blocker would have been met by somebody in the hole. Perhaps the other option was just to bow up and hand it off to Aaron with CJ Ham as the lead blocker, meeting that linebacker and seeing if you can get it. But O'Connell mentioned it. We did not have a whole lot of success, he said, running the football up until that point. They had 5 handoffs for 9 yards, I believe it was. Yep.
Yeah.
Before that. But I don't think any of their runs had gone for true negative yardage. So you could have maybe just hoped to lean forward for 1.5 yards and not put your quarterback in that position. O'Connell mentioned afterward, he said, I do need to call a better play there. And he said, I need to, I'm paraphrasing, but eliminate that outcome from even being a possibility, talking about the 85-yard pick six. So, of course, he didn't think Max was going to make that kind of decision. He said, even if we didn't get it on 4th and 1, the whole idea is that you're pinning Sam Darnold and the Seahawks deep, which they had done earlier in the game, and it had worked. So you're not thinking you're giving up a score as much as you're just not scoring yourself. So that was the whole line of thinking for that. And for Max to make that incredibly awful decision compounded what was also probably a bad call, bad play call by Kevin O'Connell. You like to see him just bow up and run it, eliminate the risk, which they did not do enough of in this game.
Yeah, it just kind of goes to show that they don't think they can be that team right now, which is the kind of team they wanted to be at the start of the year, right? Like they wanted to be a team that could get a yard when they needed a yard on the ground. And they're just not that team right now with how they were playing that day, with the whole left side of their offensive line being out for that game with no Darrisaw, no Jackson. So I get it. I don't mind going for it on 4th and 1. I just didn't love that they felt rushed, and I didn't love the play call itself. And then, of course, the turnover barrage continued in the second half, and it just got ugly to the point where they don't score. And the defense, Andrew, played pretty well. I thought they only gave up like 218 yards. Now, some of that is Seattle being ultra conservative, kind of like Green Bay was the week before, when they realized they don't have to score a ton. They just kind of need to not make a ton of mistakes. But even so, the defense kept them in it and gave them that opportunity. And it really was Dallas Turner would have 2 strip sacks in that game, including the one that they recovered to give them basically the real only good scoring chance of the game.
Yeah, Dallas Turner played well, has been playing well for a couple games in a row now. And Grenard must still be nursing that shoulder injury because he came back, but he did not start. Dallas Turner started that game. Grenard only played like 15 snaps or something like that. So Turner needed to play well, and he did. You go back and watch, he had 2 strip sacks in the first half, and the first one recovered by Seattle. I thought it was a great play by Byron Murphy. They actually seemed to bait Jackson Smith and Jigba into a fade route by showing press coverage before the snap, and then he backs off and lets JSN just kind of run right into him. Darnold has to hold that ball, go through his progression. Turner comes off the blind side and gets him. Those are the kind of plays that this defense made. And there were also moments like Brian Flores is going to bet on pressure over coverage. You go back to the offseason, you see when they signed Jonathan Allen, Hargrave, like they're betting on their pressure being more important than their coverage. And that's what they did to Darnold, like 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11. They're overloading the sides of one side of the offensive line, getting them to slide the protection the incorrect way where they're actually blitzing people off the opposite end. They generated free rushers and forced Darnold to throw hot, which meaning when he's just got a free guy rushing at him, which he doesn't always react the best to. And so you could kind of tell they knew the points to kind of hit him at, what to throw at him. By the third, I think it was series or fourth series, there was a 3rd down where Darnold just saw ghosts. He fled a clean pocket, didn't know what he was looking at around, or didn't know what he was feeling around him. And when you get him in those moments, that's where you get him playing poorly. And we've seen it. The Rams have done it to him with 2 different teams now, the Vikings and Seattle. And obviously the Vikings just did it to him too. Smith and Jigba went without a catch for like, what was it? The whole first half?
Yeah, he and Jefferson, but I think both had nothing at halftime, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and so there were moments where Smith and Jigba was left wide open, but Darnold, if you freeze the film, you could see Darnold's got his back turned to him because he's running for his life away from Eric Wilson or Grenard, or Harrison Smith was blitzing a few times. Josh Metellus, they had a free shot to Rashid Shaheed down the left sideline early in the game that got by Byron Murphy. But because Metellus had blitzed in Darnold's face, he had to flee to his left, ends up throwing that ball away.
Yeah.
It was stuff like that they were doing pretty consistently. And so they just knew, you could tell, they really knew how to get to Darnold.
Well, I was going to say, like, it was, in a strange way, it was validation of the idea of the plan, which was that they felt like there's a certain ceiling with Sam Darnold as your own quarterback. Even though he had a very good year for them last year, they went 14-3. Like, they know his limitations and weaknesses enough. They knew how to attack that. And it was also like, okay, can we win at an elite level against the best teams with a quarterback who might still revert to this form in the worst possible moment? So like, you saw the reasoning of the plan. What you haven't seen is the quarterback play to then kind of buttress that, to say, okay, the next guys up could maybe ascend beyond that. We've not seen anything close to that from McCarthy or certainly Brosmer.
No, we haven't. But that's just kind of the world that a lot of these quarterbacks live in who aren't Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, unless we see them at these highest peaks and moments in the NFL playoffs and Super Bowls perform like this, we just don't think they can do it. I mean, Jordan Love is in the same category of a Sam Darnold. Where is he worth what they're paying him? I don't know. I mean, Darnold's obviously outperforming his contract because he only makes $30 million, but Love's making $50 million. I thought Love played better than Sam Darnold against the Vikings in terms of the plays he made against pressure, what he had to do to move the chains. But how much of this, I think you said it earlier, like how much of this discussion is even worth it about Darnold in this game when frankly, they didn't have to do a whole lot. It was just basically Sam, protect the football, run it, and let's go home with a win.
Yeah. When they kicked field goals on like 4th and less than a yard from like 54-yard field goal, it's just like, they're just like, listen, we're not taking any chances here. We're going to try to put points on the board. We know we don't need a ton of points. And then they were right. So, I mean, I don't know what we're going to find out from the rest of the week, but assuming McCarthy, if he clears protocol, you would think he plays again Sunday, right? It's not going to, you didn't see anything from Brosmer that maybe you think, man, maybe we should hold out JJ for another week.
No, I would imagine the McCarthy's development gets reprioritized. Not that it had got deprioritized, but I imagine, he's right back into the first team seat. And that's what O'Connell alluded to in Seattle. He told reporters who were there, he had mentioned, hopefully JJ gets cleared and has a chance to play Sunday. Because, the Vikings were in no position to overlook good quarterback play had Max Brosmer provided it. But with everybody else letting him down, with Max being as erratic as he was, there's no reason not to go back to JJ and try to see what, with these last 5 games, what you can get.
As I wrote last week, I had a headline that said, "What if Max Brosmer plays well on Sunday?" And a friend of mine screen grabbed it, sent it to me at halftime, and said, "I guess we'll never know." There you go. Right back in my face. Some friend he is. Just kidding. It was funny. Anyway, Andrew, appreciate it as always. Maybe a little bit of a not they've been facing some good defenses lately. So Washington maybe offers a chance to see these guys operate in a little bit less of a pressure cooker next week. So we'll see if they can get another win. It feels like it's been a while.
It has. I think it's been one win since the London victory over the Cleveland Browns.
And ironically, it was in Detroit, right?
Yeah, in Detroit. You're right.
Detroit. Yep, their only win since then.
So. Somehow got that. It's been a cold winter for these Vikings.
Long, cold winter. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Mike.